It's not every day you catch your HOA president trying to sneak into your house, like she's got a VIP pass to your life. I was in my living room, nursing a steaming mug of coffee, when I heard the faint jingle of a key slipping into my front door's lock. This was no ordinary morning in the quiet cul-de-sac of Willow Creek, Oregon, on a crisp October morning in 2024. I'd swapped out my locks just a week earlier, not for style, but for security, thanks to a clever little gadget from a locksmith buddy who owed me one. Tucked inside the deadbolt was a tiny canister rigged to unleash a cloud of ultra-fine glitter, the kind that mocks brooms and haunts skin for weeks. So when the door cracked open and that telltale snap echoed, followed by a sharp yelp and the thud of someone stumbling into my porch railing, I knew the trap had sprung. I swung the door open to find Susan, our HOA president, standing there, a glittering mess under the autumn sun. Her navy skirt suit sparkled like a cheap prom dress, with flecks of shimmer clinging to her cheeks, her perfectly styled bob, even her manicured nails. She tried to play it cool, brushing at the glitter with quick, panicked swipes, but it was like watching a cat try to shake off a bath. I didn't bother asking why she was there. We both knew this wasn't a friendly drop-by. Instead, I leaned against the doorframe, took a slow sip of coffee, and let her squirm. She stammered something about an HOA compliance check due to complaints about my front yard. I glanced at my lawn, same weathered gray siding, same 2 potted ferns I'd had since moving in. Her excuse was flimsier than tissue paper. What stopped me cold wasn't her story. It was the key in her hand. I recognized it instantly. The HOA's so-called master key, supposedly for accessing utility closets or, in emergencies, certain homes if the locks were standard. Susan had made sure most of the neighborhood's locks were HOA approved, including my old ones. That key had worked on my door until I'd changed the locks after finding scuffed boot prints in my entryway one evening while I was out. Nothing was taken, but my mail was shuffled, and the idea of someone waltzing into my home made my skin crawl. Susan was my prime suspect, especially after stories of her poking around neighbors' garages for safety checks. The glitter trap wasn't just for kicks, it was a test. And she'd failed it in spectacular fashion. She didn't take the glitter bath well. Her swipes grew frantic, embedding the sparkles deeper into her clothes. She sputtered about fining me for tampering with community access points, but I pointed out my front door wasn't community property. Her mouth opened, then snapped shut, just admitted to trying to break in. What she didn't know was the glitter was only half the setup. A small camera above my porch had recorded the whole thing in crisp 4K, audio included. It caught her muttering under her breath as she turned the key, something about nailing him before the vote. I smirked as she stormed off, a trail of glitter shimmering down my walkway like a comet's tail. She had no clue she'd just handed me a loaded gun for the next HOA meeting. That night, I replayed the footage. In slow motion, it was pure theater, the glitter erupting in a sparkling halo, Susan's eyes bugging out, her mouth forming a perfect O of fury. But her words were the real gold. Nailing him before the vote, and something about getting that garage cleared out. My garage was the only one in Willow Creek not built to HOA specs, a holdover from the previous owner. Susan had been gunning for it since I moved in. The next day, an HOA notice showed up in my mailbox, claiming my garage was a structural hazard and needed to be demolished within 10 days. No inspection, no engineer's report, just her signature. The pieces clicked into place. The master key was her ticket to dig up dirt, and the glitter had caught her red-handed. I didn't confront her right away. Let her think she was still calling the shots. I fired back with a polite letter requesting a proper inspection and citing HOA rules on due process, making sure to copy every board member. Susan hated that she liked to control the narrative before it spread. I also started chatting with neighbors about their own run-ins with compliance checks. 2 mentioned finding signs someone had been in their homes, nothing stolen, just items slightly moved. Both had HOA-approved locks. By week's end, I had a list of folks starting to smell a rat. I casually mentioned my new locks and how the master key no longer worked. A few eyebrows shot up, and one neighbor said they might upgrade their own. Susan doubled down. 3 days later, she showed up with 2 board members, Tom and Lisa, in tow. A few glitter flecks still winked in her hair under the porch light. She claimed the garage issue was a unanimous board decision, but when I asked Tom and Lisa if they'd voted, they exchanged awkward glances. Susan's jaw tightened. That night, I sent the glitter video to Tom and Lisa with a neutral note suggesting they review it before the next meeting. It might, I wrote, raise questions about policy and liability. By morning, Tom called, sounding shaken. The HOA's insurance strictly forbade using master keys on private homes except in emergencies. Susan's stunt could cost the whole neighborhood its coverage. At the HOA meeting, Susan strutted into the community center like a queen, oblivious to the faint glitter still dusting her collar. I took a seat in the fourth row, close enough to watch her, far enough to dodge her verbal grenades. The meeting droned through routine updates, landscaping, budgets, a new rule against neon yard signs until Susan hit her stride on compliance violations. She painted my garage as a crumbling death trap, hinting it could collapse on kids playing nearby. It was a slick performance, vague enough to avoid legal scrutiny, but urgent enough to spook the crowd. She moved for a vote to force its removal, expecting her board allies to nod along. But Tom interrupted, asking if there'd been a formal inspection. Susan froze, fumbling about visual evidence. The room stirred. Tom pressed. Had anyone but her seen the garage? Was there a report? I raised my hand and announced I'd scheduled an independent inspection for the following week. Any vote now, I said, might be premature, especially since tearing down a grandfathered structure could open the HOA to lawsuits. I kept my tone calm, but the air shifted. Susan's confidence cracked. After the meeting, she cornered me in the parking lot, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. She accused me of stirring up trouble and hinted she had other evidence against me. I asked if it was in the same file she'd muttered about while trying my lock. Her eyes flickered. She knew I had her. You'd be surprised what cameras catch, I said. She stormed off without a word. I spent the next day prepping for the inspection, photographing every inch of my garage. It was fine, but I wasn't taking chances. I also sent an anonymous tip to a local housing blog about HOA master keys opening private homes. I didn't name Willow Creek, but I knew Susan read those posts religiously. 2 days later, a bright yellow, unsafe structure notice appeared on my garage, signed by a community safety committee that didn't exist. I photographed it, added it to my evidence folder, and smiled. She'd just broken her own bylaws. The day before the inspection, Susan showed up again, offering a deal. Remove the garage, and she'd overlook other violations. I asked what violations. She mumbled about unapproved exterior changes. I pointed out the only change was my new lock. She didn't laugh. The next morning, the inspector arrived early. Susan showed up mid-inspection, clipboard in hand, trying to take charge. The inspector, unfazed, told her to stay back. He declared the garage solid as a bunker, joking it'd outlast my house. Susan marched off, silent, as I held the signed report. That night, I uploaded everything: glitter video, fake notice, inspection report, neighbor statements to a secure folder, and sent it to the board with a note for discussion. The next day, Tom called. Susan was in panic mode, claiming I'd faked the video. But 2 more neighbors had come forward with stories of unexplained home entries. The noose was tightening. The special HOA meeting was a circus. The room overflowed with residents, many who'd never cared about HOA drama. Susan sat at the front, her smile brittle. Tom opened with a review of the master key policy, citing evidence of misuse. Heads turned to Susan. I stood, connected my tablet to the projector, and played the glitter video. The room erupted: gasps, laughs, a loud snort. I paused on Susan's muttered words about nailing him. Then I showed the fake notice, the inspection report, and neighbor statements. Finally, the 1 a.m. prowling footage: Susan in a hoodie, snapping photos of my house. The silence was deafening. Questions flew. Why was she at my house at 1 a.m.? Why did she have the key? Why no records? Susan's answers unraveled break-in concerns, safety checks, nothing convincing. Tom read the HOA's insurance clause banning non-emergency key use, noting it could void coverage. The crowd turned furious. Someone yelled, "Get her out!" Laughter and applause followed. Tom called for a vote to suspend the master key program. It passed in a landslide. Then a resident proposed censuring Susan for abuse of power. The board scheduled a vote for the next meeting. Susan didn't go quietly. Days later, a letter accused me of disrupting community harmony and threatened to revoke my privileges. I countered by tweaking my yard new wind chimes, rearranged planters just to bait her. Sure enough, my camera caught her nudging a porch chair at dusk. More evidence. By now, rumors of a recall vote were spreading. Susan fought back with flyers calling me a rogue neighbor spreading lies. But the blog post about master keys, mentioning a glitter prank, hit her hard. Neighbors started asking about the video, and her denials only fueled suspicion. 2 nights before the recall vote, my camera caught a car idling on my street, lights off. The next morning, an unsigned flyer on my porch accused me of harassment. I recognized Susan's handwriting. I added it to the folder. The vote was electric. The hall buzzed as ballots were cast. Susan worked the room, all teeth and no warmth, even muttering a threat as I passed. "You're next." I ignored her. The count was quick, 73% for removal. The room exploded. Susan grabbed her purse and bolted, the door slamming behind her. Greg took over as acting president, suspending the master key program and setting new rules requiring consent for property access. Susan filed a grievance, claiming conspiracy, but it flopped. Her house went up for sale a month later, glitter still sparkling in the porch cracks. The day she left, I watched her car vanish down the street, coffee in hand. It wasn't triumph, I felt just relief. The glitter trap had started as a prank, but ended up exposing a bully who'd controlled Willow Creek too long. A week later, Greg handed me an unsigned note. "Nice work, but watch your back." Maybe one of Susan's allies. Maybe a new player. Either way, I wasn't worried. People like her think they're chess masters, but once you flip the board, everyone sees the game for what it is. What would you do if you caught someone sneaking into your home? Should HOAs have master keys at all? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more wild neighborhood tales.